Welcome in. Let me get myself situated. Let me get my overarching question pinned in the thing. Always grateful for Priya Parker for giving us this little nod on how to make these gatherings better. Okay. How's everybody doing? Let's take it out of this thing and do this. What does power look like? Probably should have written it before and then just had it saved. Now I gotta try to pin it, and now this video's too close to my face. You know how it goes. It's standard. There we go, pin comment. Okay, pin the comment. I will also ask off the top, not really as a request, but that you have good behavior in the comments. As always, we are very thankful for our guests' time and for them spending time with us. So, as they say, please don't act up in front of company, and treat them with respect and make them want to come back. Thank you. Good morning, afternoon, everyone, I guess. Welcome back to Wednesday's Reset the Table Live with Reinc. We have an incredibly special guest. I'm certainly geeked out. Someone who I look up to a lot, have learned from a lot, and who's like just an absolute superstar in this world. Tarana J. Burke is on. You probably know her from the Me Too movement. She's the creator of that. But she has spent over 25 years in activism, mostly focused around sexual violence and racial injustice, particularly focused on marginalized people, mostly women and girls. So she does just amazing work. Anyone who's met her, seen her speak, or follows her, knows she's just absolute force to be reckoned with. I'm so excited. I feel like the idea of intersectionality is starting to become like a little bit more mainstream, something that people are starting to understand more and understand how important it is, particularly in this movement, but really just if we're talking about reimagining the world, if we're talking about racial injustice, if we're talking about violence against women, if we're talking about anything, you're talking about intersectionality for the most part. And her work, I feel like, is an intersection of many, many, many things, particularly as we started to get into Me Too movement, which we saw a lot of white actresses. I think the idea around white feminism, and oftentimes Black voices being pushed out of that movement or being sort of pushed to the margins of that movement. I'm really interested to talk to Tarana about that. So without further ado, let me get in there and find her, because this is also not my strong suit, but we will make this work. Let me see if it's in here. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Let me see if I can do the search. As you all know, we started doing Reset in general just to gather people, to spark conversation, and to really sort of give light and space for these reimaginers of the world. Tarana's been doing this for a long time, for 25 years. A lot of people might be new to her, but she is not new to this movement and not new to any of the ideas which people are now just coming to. So I'm so excited to be able to talk with her today. I just have to find her. goes. 12:05. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Oh no, no one needs to see my laundry sitting there on the couch. Do we? Has anyone seen Tarana in here? Two chains, 3 chains actually. Okay, has anyone seen her in here? Tarana, if you are in here, maybe hit us with a wave or a comment and we can then find you. I got this, I know. Everyone's giving me a lot of encouragement and support in here. I appreciate it. It's always the moment where I'm getting a little hot, getting a little nervous, but we will find her. I hope. She's not there yet. Text in the peeps. Haven't seen her yet either. We'll find her. Tell us what's new. Oh gosh, what is new? Things are so wild, right? I mean, I just keep coming back to the motto of this company, which is reimagining the status quo and everything else. Let's hope that we can do that. The queen is never late. Everyone else is simply early. I'm here for that. Absolutely. Don't stress. Well, easier said than done. No, I'm not stressing. Should get in here. Maybe just it's like if you don't have a mix-up on technology, were you even on? No, you weren't. Sometimes I wonder if our guests are on my personal one, maybe, and not on the re-ink one. But I'm going to take this opportunity to put some chapstick on because this never hurt anyone, right? Nobody needs cracky lips. Yes, Kristen and Tobin are in here, which I love. How have I been doing recently? I think as good as anyone could be doing. I find this moment to be particularly interesting in that I'm actually so hopeful and so energized in this moment. This is very clearly, different than 2016 and it, different than anything I think I've experienced in my lifetime. I think that, not that I'm that old or have been doing this work for that long, frankly, but there does seem to be an energy about it. And at the same time, it's almost like for me, I think about it like not a lot has changed from 2016, like, Colin was saying these same things, and these activists were saying the same things, and Black Lives Matter was saying the same thing. So it's just like a matter of people believing it this time, and like basically stepping themselves out of the way so their mind and their heart can, look at this with empathy and get on board with this. So in a way, it's almost like sad. There's like a sadness to it for me, because I feel like this is just kind of a choice people are making. And I think if everyone made the choice to just very simply like believe Black people and, treat other people how you would want to be treated, or stand up for people how maybe you would want to be stood up for, or just like treating everyone with respect, then I think we would be so much further along. So it's like conflicting in a way, because it's not hard. I think that we want to feel like it's really hard, and that makes us feel better that we haven't like done anything, or haven't done enough or whatever. But like, when you really think about it, like, you can just believe Black people, and you can just like believe, trans people, and you can just give them the right to live their life like you want to live your life, and like actually that give us the right to live our lives how you are living your life. And so I am very hopeful, and I think you have to remain hopeful, and that's just sort of my natural disposition in that. But I have grace, but not that much grace. And so I think this like idea around like giving white people like the space to come to it, I agree. And there does have to be a first step for people, and we have to allow that. But like, let's make step, 1 through 100 or 2 through 100 now, like a lot quicker than like the 0 to 1. I think that's where it's kind of like, we need to like get on board, because a lot of things that we're talking about are very simple. It's like in your mind and in your heart adjustments to the way you look at the world, or even just like allowing yourself to be educated, allowing your opinion to change, allowing yourself to be like, oh, I didn't know that. Now I do know that. Now maybe my worldview has changed. And like, it's okay to change your mind. New information comes in, and then you change your mind, and that's like, that should be the baseline of things. I think that's, I think we should all get used to when new information comes in, then we reassess the way that we think, and maybe the things that we held true. And I think that, white people just holding on to like their perspective in the world is not allowing for any other perspectives. And so while yes, we're gonna, you only have your own life and everything, I get that. But it's okay to change, and just realizing that maybe your perspective or your worldview is actually hindering other people, taking the rights away from other people, oppressing other people. So like, maybe we just need to change that a little bit, and it's okay to change. So that's kind of how I'm feeling in this moment. Very hopeful, still a pang of sadness, knowing that while we have made progress, there's still so much left to do, which then sort of re-energizes me, because I feel like I have work left for 10 lifetimes. So that's a good thing to know, that I feel like we all have a lot of work to do, and we have purpose for many lifetimes to come. But I think that I'm also really hopeful, because I feel like change can happen really quickly. Like, just think about, where we've come in the last 2 months. The idea of something like defund the police. Like, if you said that, at the beginning of the pandemic, whatever, everyone was like, no, absolutely not. I had never even said that. Like, I didn't even think about it like that. I was just thinking in terms of, reform, and how do we do this, and how, and make things better. But it's like, there's been such a swell and a ground, a sort of sea change that we're seeing happen right now. And it's like, things only don't change because people don't want them to, or they get, resistance to it, or the people in power don't want it to change. But like, actually, things can change very quickly. And I think we're seeing that, and I think we're seeing more of the story being told. Mainstream media is traditionally white. It's owned by white people, run by white people. As progressive as you want to be, like, you're just not getting the whole story. So I think that, the sort of democratization of media and of storytelling, whether that be on Instagram, I think is working to change the narrative to something closer to what it actually is. Like, this system really is working for, like, not very many people. And so I think we're getting more of those activists' voice and more of those organizers' voice. And they're like, actually, this is the roadmap. We've been doing this work our whole lives, and we're just only seeing it now. It's like, there's a reason why, Black Lives Matter was so easy off the tongue this time. And it's like, because they have been setting the foundation for all of these years and, like, doing the hard work to make it easy to then go into the mainstream and be like, yes, Black Lives Matter. We know that, and we've explained it, and we know why we can't say all lives matter anymore. We know why all lives matter, is only used as a whataboutism to not talk about the actual problem. No one said all lives didn't matter. We're just, like, saying, can Black Lives Matter too? So I'm rambling on now, but I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful in this moment. And I think that we could be on the verge of a total sea change in this country, and, like, the rebirth. Do I want to say rebirth of America? Yeah, maybe the rebirth of America into actually living up to the ideals that we like to say, that we want, that this country was founded on, but founded on only for a particular group of people. But can we take those ideals and take those promises and that sort of dream and allow everyone to participate? Like, I think that would be really, really quite incredible. So I'm hoping that that this is that moment. I think it can be. I've kind of said that from the beginning of the pandemic, even before the the murder of Ahmaud Arbery and the horrific video of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Amy Cooper. All this is kind of like the pandemic really stripped bare, the very thinly veiled BS, basically, that the Republican Party tries to tell us about why the world is the way it is, why we can't have universal health care, why we can't have, better benefits, why any of these sort of progressive policies. And I think it's like, oh, we actually can do that. We just don't want to. We just didn't have the political will to do it. And so I hope now that we are seeing that those opportunities are there, and, like, the power really does lie with the people when the people are involved and when the people are, participating in the democratic process, and when they care about who's getting elected from their district. And, we saw it with the elections just recently with Jamal Bowman. It's like, he cares. And so he lives in that neighborhood, and, like, he's going to be the one who's going to best represent what's going on there. Okay, she's in. We found her. Okay, now I gotta figure out how to get her in. Okay. Yes. Oh, did I get her in? I was doing a victory lap before I should have. Ooh, I'm very excited. Oh dear, nobody needs to see that. You really gotta, like, get the pin down. Now I'm just, okay, I'm gonna go in here, do it this way. Okay, no, I'm not gonna do it that way. Okay, Tarana, I'm coming for you. I'm going to find you. Okay. Go live with. Yes! We got it!
I am so embarrassed.
Don't even worry about
it. Listen, I have been on Zoom calls back to back since this morning, right? And so I got off the last one. I said, let me go grab something to eat. And my daughter is here. My daughter is home with me. And my daughter pulled me into something in the room, and I'm just chat. And I'm so sorry. And I came back here, and I have like literally 11 phone calls, 20 text messages. I was like, who is trying to reach me? I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I look crazy. I'm sorry. But good. I'm here.
No, you forced me into a monologue. Fine. People were like, tell us what you're saying. I'm like, well, okay.
Oh man, please. For everybody who's been waiting for the last 21 minutes, I so apologize. I don't do late like that. It's
actually so on brand. Every time I get on a live or do anything, like I thought now, and this was perfect.
Oh man. Yeah. You know, my daughter is 22, and my favorite person in the whole world. And we went the whole quarantine without seeing each other. And so now every minute we're like,
yeah, I know.
Mommy. And I'm like, baby. So I apologize. Anyway, hi.
Good reason. Definitely. Well, we are just thrilled to have you on. I was talking to my mom before, and I was like, I'm like nervous.
Oh,
it's like nervous. I don't know. I love you. I respect your work. You're such an.
Oh, thank you so much.
And like, I don't care what a lot of people think about me, but like, I do care what you think about me. Like,
well, I think you are amazing, and my most recent BFF is Glennon Doyle, and Glennon and Abby. You know, I did share the mic with Glennon. And so I forgot. I just literally talked to this morning. I forgot to tell Glennon I was having this conversation to make her jealous.
No, it's good. We're so excited to have you. We're so thrilled. The whole genesis of this Reset the Table Live, you know, before quarantine, we were able to bring people together, kind of all over the place, and you know, just kind of spark conversation. Like, we only have one lens through which we can look.
Yeah.
You know, you're an intersection of a lot of different things. Your lens is probably a lot bigger. You're at the intersection of maybe one thing. You know, your lens isn't big, and so you're just not really getting the whole picture of things. Our like motto in our company, what we founded on, is you reimagine the status quo, right? Like, clearly the world
You're cutting out a little bit.
Pardon?
You're cutting out a little bit. It's now.
Hopefully the internet is a constant thing. It's like we all thought we had good internet until we had to get on every day. Like, turns out the internet is bad.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, our whole kind of concept in our company is how do you reimagine the status quo? Because really, like, the status quo or whatever it is, this whole system was built by like straight white guys, you know, money, and want to keep it all like that.
Yeah, keep it all to themselves.
Exactly, keep it all to themselves, right? And so I kind of want to get into, you know, how you reimagine the status quo, but also the intersection of a lot of your work. Sexual violence, obviously you're who's doing a lot of work feminism, from, you know, white feminism and sort of that toxicity, and how that's how we then turn around and be the oppressor. The first question, I just want to start, how are you, like, how is this moment landing on you, not only personally, but in terms of your and where you see us?
So, well, thank you. I think I've been involved in a bunch of conversations in the last like month, and they've actually been helpful because, you know, in some ways I can be an authority Are you there? Oh,
Here now.
it just paused for a minute. Of like, learning and listening in order for us to progress. So I appreciate the space. How I just said to my friend the other day, we're probably gonna have to come up with another small talk greeting besides "How are you?" because nowadays I'm like, do you really want to know, or is this just like like a way to say hello? Because I can let you know.
Yeah.
I'm a lot of things. I am for the first sort of the pandemic hit us hard because my partner had it and he was down really bad. He has diabetes and a history of asthma, and so it hit him hard. And then we collectively lost about 6 people between us in a very short period of time. And so the March, April was tough, and you can't stop working at the same time. And so and it felt like just as we were sort of coming off of that, there's always something happening in the news. And then we had, George Floyd and then the subsequent uprisings and Breonna Taylor. And so it's been nonstop, and it kind of feels like whiplash. My girlfriend describes it as racial whiplash, and that you are just up and down and you don't know where to look sometimes. Things turn so quickly. So I feel most recently, though, I've been feeling I'm getting a bit of centering. I see so many hopeful things happening. I've been in this work a long, long time, literally since I was a teenager. And so I've seen the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs. And one of the things I tell people all the time is that part of their frustration is they don't understand movement, right? Like, people are like, well, why hasn't the Me Too movement done this? Or why hasn't the Black Lives Matter movement done that? And it's like, well, movements are long. They take time. Yeah. They are thoughtful. They are strategic. And this is just another iteration. Me Too did not invent the fight to end sexual violence. It broadened it, right? So anyway, to your original point, I feel good. Today I feel good. I feel like I see things starting to gel. I feel like I'm kind of getting, some people will call it recentering. If in the Christian tradition, you'll say, I'm walking lockstep with God. If you are, non-religious, you say I'm feeling grounded, but I'm feeling that good sense, and I'm happy about that because I've been a little wobbly for a minute. So
yeah, I mean, understandably, I think especially white people come to this right now aren't understanding is that, in particular, I think I guess I'm asking for active, because you're so in the work all the time. So you talked about your experience with COVID and losing so many people close to you at it. And so you're dealing with all of that. And then George Floyd happens and the protest, but it's like, you don't get the chance to just sit in it, because then that's the moment where you're to action.
You gotta work. You gotta keep going.
Yeah.
While I was dealing with COVID at home, we were organizing strategy to deal with survivors out in the world who have heightened situations because of COVID. People who cannot shelter in place because place is dangerous. So it's kind of this internal, and that's the sort of the dichotomy of being a Black person in movement. Anyway, you are in it. One of my favorite quotes comes from Joanne Smith, who's the founder of Girls for Gender Equity. And she always says, we come to the work because we are the work. Hmm. And it's so dead on, right? I'm in this because I'm a survivor. I'm in this because I'm a Black woman. I'm in this because of my lived experiences. But I continue to have those lived experiences while also fighting against this thing. And it was that framework that I thought of when I was first starting this work, that said, I don't want to do any activist organizing movement work around ending sexual violence that doesn't include a healing framework for people who are actually, at the forefront of it, because it's just unethical.
Right. Yeah, it's unfair.
It is.
Yeah. People sort of say that, are the movement. People say about female athletes, like, oh, female athletes are always, the one kind of talking about things first, or like, because we're the intersection. It's like we are, especially about a league like the WNBA, talk about all the time. They do represented for their work in activism. They don't the attention, but it's like a lot of gay, Black women, female actors, and so all of the intersection, it's sort of, you can't not do the work, and really interesting. What are you seeing in terms of, so obviously the Me Too movement, you know, took the world by storm in a particularly white way, felt like. How, I mean, frankly, it's like you have a bunch of white actors, and then it was like, now we're going to actually bring, you know, Tarana, you know, do creating this. Are you seeing similarities in the intersection of this moment? How things are maybe different from what you saw during you? Is it, are we giving more credit? Are we more aware of it? Like, what really, what do we still need to do to stop centering the thing that is the problem, you know, the sort of structure?
So, hold on to somebody. There, people are trying to give us advice here about the noise, because I'm trying to maybe you have headphones?
I do. Where are they? They're somewhere. Maybe if I take it out, I had it kind of propped up on something.
Yeah, I have, and I cut my air off just in case.
See. Yeah. We'll see.
Is,
Do walk around here. Yeah, let me get these headphones and see if that helps.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? Maybe I'll sit here. Okay. Maybe that's better.
Your headphones are connected?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good so far. We'll let the people. We'll let the people tell us.
People happy?
Said that sounds better.
Okay. Cool.
All right. The people sound happy. Let us know, y'all. If
right. Oh, they will. They always do.
So your question was about seeing intersections between. You might want to say it one more time.
Yeah. So are you seeing differences? I felt like, you know, the Me Too movement was like, you know, it very much showed up in the public, at least in the beginning, through white women. And it wasn't started by white women. And, you know, the problem and sort of the toxicity of whiteness in feminism traditionally, and still in this time. Are you seeing a difference between, you know, that movement that kind of took the country by storm and this movement right now? Now, this is not, you know, totally focused on sexual violence and Me Too, but I think that it's a broader movement, and we're seeing that it is about Black Lives Matter, but it's also about, you know, trans people and women and just people of color in general. It's like, basically, have we grown at all, or like, are we still seeing the same problems?
So both and. I think I got asked, for an article the other day, I got asked a similar question, and they said, what similarities do you see between when Me Too burst on the scene and Black Lives Matter in this moment? And I said, Black women are still being erased. You know, and so part of the problem has always been, there's a book, I forget the author's name, but there's a book that a lot of Black feminists refer to all the time. The title is amazing, because the title is All the Women Were White and All the Women Were White, all the Blacks were men, but some of us were brave. And it really talks about, like, just that title alone is about erasing of Black women. When people hear Black Lives Matter, they often think Black men, right? What we've seen is these horrific images of Black men being murdered, being shot in the street, being just slaughtered, like their lives don't matter. And we don't often see the same kind of imagery around Black women, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so, thank you, Barbara Smith. And so what I've seen in this moment is that Black women have definitely been pushing, and Black women and queer folks, trans folks, GNC folks have been pushing to make sure that it's less of that. So you see this whole big push around Breonna Taylor, you know, and getting justice, whatever that looks like, for Breonna Taylor. You see people lifting up the name of, like, Toya and Salawu, the 19-year-old girl who was found murdered in Florida, and the conversation is a little more robust than it has been. But there's still this thing this phenomenon that happens, and I don't know that I have an answer for it necessarily, but in private conversations, a lot of Black women are tired right now because as usual, we are called in to do heavy lifting. So there's the role of fighting on the front lines to make sure people understand that Black Lives Matter. That movement is started by Black women. And until this iteration of it, you know, the last iteration of it, even though 3 Black women started it, a lot of times they were pushed to the side, and you saw men rise up and men's names being brought forward and men being seen as the leaders of that. Similarly for me, you know, I tell people all the time to be a little more nuanced about my experience when Me Too went viral. Yes, white women were at the forefront of that. I don't necessarily blame the white women though, right? Not those actresses who came forward. Those actresses who came forward did not come forward to co-opt the movement. They didn't come forward to say, oh, I knew a Black woman started this, but we're going to take it from her. What happens is that because we are socialized to respond to the vulnerability of white women in this country, all of us are. When you see white women come forward and say, if I can stand on my head and say, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts. This thing that you keep thinking, it hurts. And the minute a white woman comes in and says, you know what, this does hurt. People are like, oh my God, are you hurt? How can we help you? Are you hurt? And then that woman has to say, well, I'm hurt, but she's hurt too. And she's hurt a little bit more. Her wound is a little deeper. You know, help her.
Exactly.
And then we get that assistance. That is a systemic issue in this country. That's about white supremacy. It's about patriarchy. And that's why we have to focus on those systems as opposed to, like, I'm not interested in calling out Gwyneth Paltrow or, you know, saying, Alyssa Milano. Like, that doesn't help. Because, and honestly, those women are always like, no, we want you to be in the forefront. What we have to do collectively, both white women, Black women, other women of color, people in general, have to keep pushing for people to understand the root of that. Why is it that we respond that way? Why is it that we are more prone to listen to a Black woman, a woman of color, a queer person, if there's a conduit that we're more comfortable with? Those are the things that we got to like break open and really dig into. And so I'm seeing some of that work happen, more of that work happen than I've ever seen in the history of movement work. I think that's a lot to do with social media and a lot of like public learning that people are doing.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I think a lot about in terms of the storytelling, because that's really what media is. That's what journalism is. That's what anything that you can consume really is. So I think about it in terms of like the power structure. So that's really the most important. People are telling the story. People been telling the story the whole time. But it's like if you're CNN or whoever, CNN for instance, and like all your C-suite is white men and all the people that are on TV are white men and all the producers and executive producers are white men, they could have the best of intentions. They have major blind spots.
Yeah.
So like, how do you think about, I pinned this in the thing, what does power look like? And how could we change access to the power? Because that's how you change the system. I feel like going to Gwyneth Paltrow and being like, you're wilding or you're doing this. She's just the system or just a symptom of the problem. And she can then go back and give credit to you or give credit to whoever. But like, and the next time it comes around, it's going to be the same thing. So like, how do you think about power in terms of storytelling and activism and all of that and how to change those power structures?
There's a African proverb that says, as long as I always get this wrong. I want to get it right. But it's something along the lines of as long as the hunter is always telling the story of the lion will never know the pain of the lion. I know I'm messing it up completely, but it's like the people who control the storytelling are create a lot of the power. Like we can change laws, we can change policies, but what people consume every day through the media, and you actually brought back the point to add on to the point I was making earlier. If anybody hijacked this movement, white mainstream media did. Because white mainstream media doesn't know what to do with a 46-year-old Black woman with a nose spread across her face and dark skin from the Bronx that's not eloquent, that's not a movie star. When I did the Golden Globes, it was like a lot of hype around it. Yeah. But when we actually got on the red carpet, Michelle had to be like, please talk to Tarana. They'd be like, Tarana, that's nice. and Michelle, your movie, you know, because they don't know what to do
They
with
don't.
Tarana,
We don't
right?
know. We
But
don't
we
know.
have to keep pushing that in their faces and say this. People have to say, this is what I want to see. I want to consume things. I don't want to consume stuff that looks just like me. I don't want to get information that's just about my world. People have to pay attention when Black women speak, when people that don't look like them speak. And you have to be able to know when to pass the mic, share the mic, and take the mic. And so that's a really important point, because there's sometimes when, and my experience has been a lot with certain white women, that they'll say, I shouldn't be talking about this. You should. Let me bring you in, because they won't bring you in. Then other times they'll say, and I'll say, no, you should have this. This is a conversation you should have, because I don't want the burden of having to teach all the time. And so, you know, it's a dance that we're learning to do. And I feel like, and I'm also kind of isolated in a way, in a bubble, you know, of like positivity.
Yeah.
So the white women in my world are women who are trying to change the world and who get it and who do their work and stuff. But I mean, I see what's going on outside the world, obviously, and I know that that's where the larger problem is. And your question was about power. I think about, I wish we would have more conversations about power, because it's really power and privilege is at the root of all of these sites of oppression. And we can get, when people ask how sexual violence and racial injustice are tied, it is that they were both seated in the same place by power and privilege. And those in power will not relinquish power without a fight.
Yeah,
that's just
exactly.
The truth. That's just what we know from history. It'll never happen. Nobody's going to just turn over and say, you know what, this is unfair.
That's exactly. It's like, I found it to be so, I mean, in a really dark and sick way, hilarious during the protests when people were like, can we just not have the violence, or can we this? I'm like, you live in America. You do know that, right? America, in all of its history, it's always violent.
Always.
It's wild. I'm like, when have we ever had a peaceful transfer of power?
Of power.
When have we ever, for on any side, for anything? I'm like, this is America. This is why people protest. This is why it gets violent, because this is our history. This is what we know to be able to change in our history, because our power structures are so deeply rooted and pervasive.
And also, people are not used to they're not used to it, but there is Black rage has been vilified in ways that people don't even realize when what they're responding to is a socialization that they've received that says Black rage is dangerous. Black rage is wrong, right? There is still an underlying message there that you should be grateful, Negro, that you got your freedom. You should be grateful that we let you work and we let you live freely in this country. So how dare you rage? And even the most well-meaning folks amongst us will say, well, I was with you until, you know, the Target burnt down. And now I just like, you guys don't need rights that bad that you burnt down my Target, right? And no, some rage is rage. We know what it is. Sometimes it's unbridled, sometimes it's contained, but it is an expression. And when you don't listen to people, when people don't feel like they're being heard, that they don't feel like they're being seen. And if you can't see me and you can't hear me, it is only going to enrage me more, because I'm a human being and we have a need for connection. We have a need to be seen. We have a need to be validated. And when that doesn't come, people will go out and seek it however they can.
Well, you have to. I mean, in order to live. I mean, it is getting to the point where like people in this country are not able to live because of who they are. And what we've done as a country is criminalize people. We haven't, you know, it's not like, oh, it's bad to do drugs or whatever. And I was listening to Patrisse Cullors talk, I'm sure, you know, of course, we owe her. She was saying even just about the whole criminal justice system. And it made me think, because I have a brother who's been ensnared in the system for a long time. You know, drugs is his thing. So yes, he's committed crimes, but you know, he's a drug addict. And even just the fact that we say he's a criminal. And I've said that. I'm like, oh, my brother's criminal, whatever. And it's like the dehumanization of that. Like, he's actually not a criminal. He has a drug problem.
It's a drug problem.
It's like you either have a drug problem or you're black or you're gay. And so being gay is the crime. Being black is the crime. It's not the actual whatever crime that people have made up to do it. So it's,
my God, if you are a black gay drug user,
yeah,
you know, it just compounds and compounds and compounds. It's true. We will quickly dehumanize people. We quickly put them in buckets and in categories, and we decide, you know, and this is systemic, but it's also cultural in a lot of ways. We just like decide to write off a group, and that's the end of it, you know. And then like I know what they're like. I've seen every episode of Law and Order, you know.
seen them all. Yeah.
I mean, I actually have, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. That's just a side note. That's just a side little nugget. Yeah. But that is where I feel like, you know, intersectionality, and the more people start to really understand what that means, the more we will demand that our leaders have the most intersectionality. So it's like, if you are, you know, a black, queer, trans woman, like, you are perfectly suited to lead the people, right? Because you got to lead everyone. And if you have major blind spots, then like, you have them, and you can do the work, and you can, you know, try to correct those and try to see everyone's perspective, but like, you don't have everyone's perspective. And I hope that we're moving toward that. I think we are, but I hope that is what people are getting from this, is like, that's the reason why we need to listen to black women, or listen to black trans women, like, or queer black women, or whatever it is, like, for that reason, because they see us, they see everyone.
I'm going to tell you, my training, I tell people this all the time, Black women save my life on a regular basis. And the reason why I am able to rise to the occasion, so to speak, in this moment, and that I didn't have to fight and struggle to make people know that Me Too was mine and I started it. I didn't have to fight and struggle to say that I center black and brown women and girls, because you will know by the way that I walk through the world that no matter what, I center black women and girls. It's not to the exclusion of anybody. It's because I center black women and girls that I'm able to serve everybody. Because my training as a black woman from other black women taught me that. And it taught me about having deep empathy, about listening deeply, about loving deeply. And these are concepts that people kind of poo-poo, like it's like this moment is all about fighting. This moment is about love. In a lot of ways, it is about how we connect, like power, the unchecked accumulation of power, and the misuse of privilege is the problem.
Right.
The unchecked accumulation of power and the misuse of privilege comes from people who have disconnected from the ability to see love in other people. And I know I sometimes when I say this, people are like, where are you getting this kumbaya shit from? But you know, that's not to say I'm not a fighter, right?
Yeah.
But I will fight for the right to love freely. I will fight for the right to love my people. I will fight for the right to be able to live in a world where love is prioritized. Those are the things that I will fight for, but we don't. Cornel West has a quote. I should not be saying more quotes because I keep messing them up. But it is one of my
Maybe
favorites.
You'll get one right.
This is what I know I can get right because it's my favorite. Cornel West says, you cannot save the people if you don't serve the people. You cannot lead the people if you don't love the people. And that is at the core of the two principles that are at the core of my work. That quote and the first rule of nonviolence as a tactic is, I will not violate your dignity, but I will not compromise mine. And when I make a decision, it will be to serve everybody, even my enemies. Those are my guiding principles when I think about how we have to move forward in this work. What we have in this country is a deficit in leadership. We have a moral deficit. We have a love deficit. We have a learning deficit, an intellectual deficit.
Yeah, big time.
But that deficit that we have sometimes, when in the history of humanity, when those deficits come, because this is the first one, right? This is not the first time we've seen it in history. It is in those moments that the people have to rise up and show the leadership how we want to be led. Mm-hmm. We have to stand up and say, this is wrong. And this is what leadership looks like. And we have to model that. And I think what I love about this moment is that I'm seeing a modeling of what leadership should look like in this country, that I hope influences heavily what leadership will look like in this country very soon, you know?
Yeah, I think it can happen very soon. I'm hoping that people are realizing that we've been told this great lie that if you want to be successful, like yourself,
is individualized,
be successful, right? But it's like, that's not our society. That's not human nature. That's not who we are. It's such a scarcity mindset. My friend Kristen says this all the time. It's a scarcity mindset. And if we move from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, it's great if I'm doing well. And it's great if someone else is doing well. It's great if I have $1 million. It's also great if someone else does. And maybe I just only have 800,000 and like you have 200,000, but we're both good. Then like, it's fine. We should all have this sort of a reimagining of like, someone doesn't have to suffer for me to be okay. And I feel like this pandemic laid that hopefully for the last time totally bare in these Republican politics and all this, because I'm like, it's just bullshit. Like, it's just bullshit.
We have to model, like, even those of us who don't have, you know, who are like progressive and have a particular kind of consciousness, that scarcity and abundance thing is really an important point. I talk about that a lot too, sometimes, because I remember when Me Too first went viral, people would reach out to me like in social media and say things, particularly men and particularly queer men, who would say things like, can I say Me Too? I want to say Me Too. I want to tell my story, but I feel like I'm taking up space from women and I don't want to infringe on women's moment. And I was so shocked by it at first. And then I started looking at what was out there. And this is the importance of like why me being brought into the moment was not about me reclaiming my thing, but it was about the need for vision and for like somebody to create a container to process this moment in. Mm-hmm. And I remember this was like in the first 2 weeks or something, putting out this tweet about how we will, if we're not careful, we will model the things that we are trying to fight, right? Exactly. And so imagine if you think of Me Too, these words, they're just two words that happen to be healing, that happen to be cathartic, that happen to be life-changing for some people. If you found a fruit in your garden, right? A tree grew in your garden, right? And it bore fruit. And when you opened that fruit, you figured out that it was healing. Like this fruit has a balm that when you rub it on you, it makes you feel better. When you drink it and eat it, it makes you healthy. If you found that thing, would you hoard it or would you share it? Would you go collecting it from your tree and go to your neighbors and say, hey, neighbors, plant this in your garden because I found something that's going to heal us inside and out. There's no reason. There's no limit to empathy. There's no limit to love. There's no limit to these things. And sometimes in our quest for like equality and liberation and those things, we get really, really a scarcity mindset that says, this is mine. And this works for me and my group, so you can't have it. And that's also deeply problematic. We have to live in abundance and know that there's enough for these things to go around for everybody. Whether it's money or love, there's enough. And because we don't think in that way and we think from scarcity, and that's what we're also socialized to be, right? Give me. I need this. I need to put my savings in my boxes and my things away. Because maybe one day, right? And I'm not, save your money, people. Don't. I'm not saying no.
Don't twist the words.
Don't twist the words.
Right.
But that is a really important point because we don't want to model the things that have got us here in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, a difficult thing. And I think this is where the right, I'll just say the right, has an advantage over the left in that the only thing the right has to do is just continue to tell the same story we've told for you know, however
Yep.
many years. I mean, more than the life of this country, frankly.
They
And
are nothing if not consistent.
Yeah, they're like, American dream. And it's like, that's not really true. And people are like, yes, it is. And we're like, okay. But on the left, like what we have to do, or the progressives, or if we're talking about, you know, equality, racial equality, you know, LGBTQI plus, everything, it's like, we actually do have to build the new system and build a new structure. And that's much harder. But also, like, you know, we're in 2020, we have the internet, and we've like got to the moon, and we have all, you know, technology and medicine. Like, imagine a system where we take into account, where we have an abundance mindset, where we say at the basis of the system, everyone is created equal, everyone is valued, everyone has the basic right of food and shelter and love and acceptance and healthcare, all of these things. Like, in one sense, it's like, yeah, we have a more difficult job because, you know, they just get to tell the same story all the time. But on the other hand, the story's not working for anyone. And so how do we, I mean, I have it written in my notes here, like, you are such a visionary, and the creators of Black Lives Matter are such visionaries, because it takes people out of like looking at the symptoms and say, what do we want? What do we actually need? What is that healing thing? And then how do we move forward in the world? And I felt this from the beginning of the pandemic, of like, this is a once in a multiple lifetime, you know, gift wrapped up in horror, but it is a gift. I mean, absolute horror, a gift for us to say, do we want to continue living this life, or do we want a new life? And I hope that this is that moment.
It has to be. People have to see this in various ways. There's a here I go with my quotes again, but I mean, the quotes are stories. This is just who I am. I'm sorry.
I love it.
But I had the great fortune of interviewing Toni Morrison, who's one of my all-time idols and like literary mama. But and my daughter was there. My daughter asked about writer's block and said, you know, how do you get over that? And what do you think about writer's block? And she gave the most beautiful answer that I take as an answer about life and not just about writing. And she said, there's no such thing as writer's block. It's a pause. And if you block, you're supposed to be blocked. If you're pausing, you're supposed to pause. She was like, think of it as a moment in time, and try to sit in that moment and understand why you needed to pause before you go rushing trying to push yourself to the next thing. Right. And that's what I thought of that over and over again during this moment of like, in what world could we imagine stopping and sitting in our homes and communicating over on, you know, like, it's just, and I think this second wave, pray God that it's not horrible and we don't have a whole, you know, bunch more deaths, but just precautionary. That the first wave was very scary, right? It's like, oh my God, what is this thing happening? But I think more so what I'm seeing now, people are settling into, what am I supposed to be doing? Mm-hmm. What's supposed to be happening now? How does the world have to change? I think the cloud is lifting, so people are saying things like, we can change the world. Anything is possible, you know, like, so I feel this is kind of the clarity I was talking about in the beginning. I'm starting to feel a hopeful, like, realignment happening, where I'm kind of like coming back to what I know, and what I know about what I'm supposed to do, what I call my assignment, has been crystal clear for a long time. And every now and again it gets cloudy and I'm kind of like, you know, and then I'm like, oh, right here, you know? And I'm having one of those moments, and I think the world is, and it's kind of really beautiful to watch it, because you're like seeing like those bubbles. You're like seeing the bubbles pop all over, where people like, people's heads, yeah. And I think I just don't want to. My only fear is I just don't want us to blow it. You know?
It's so true. I know. I'm like, please don't blow it. I don't think we are. I think we're gonna have a moment. I'm getting the countdown on Instagram, so I don't want it to cut us off before I just say thank you so much for sharing your time with us so graciously. Even though you made me wait.
I'm so sorry. I owe you.
No.
Thank you.
Nothing. No, we're so thankful for your time here, and just for your work in the world. You're just absolutely one of the women that is leading us hopefully into this new world, in a new light where we have love and we have empathy, and it's a better world. So